we're talking about reframing your concept of value. The first thing that I want to do before we even get started is I want you to pick up your hypothetical CEO hat and I want you to put it on your head. Okay? Okay. Now we're thinking like CEOs. The reason I'm making this silly little exercise, whether you choose to do it for real or just in your head, it matters because it prompts a mindset shift that is super important for us when we are talking about our business and the value that we bring to the world. And the reason that this is such a mindset shift is because the vast majority of people who get into mobile bars, from my own observation and experience, we're not coming into mobile bars from being entrepreneurs. I was entrepreneurial, but I worked for other people to pay my bills, get my health insurance through them, etc., etc. Many of you might already have a real job, and you're side hustling your mobile bar, but the dream might be to make a transition at some point into having it be full time. And maybe you aren't. Maybe this is always going to be a side hustle for you, and it's just fun, and that's okay too. But still, you started a business, and you are the CEO. So we want you to be making decisions like a CEO would and not like what I refer to as an entrepreneurial employee. Entrepreneurial employees are people who have been employees their whole lives and then start their own business. And because the tool belt that they have really honed in on and sharpened over their entire career is from the perspective of the employee, they start running their business as though they're an employee of the business. Even though they're their own employee, they still think that they have to follow the rules that they've always followed when operating within their business. And so part of this also looks like valuing their time. So an example, if you're making $100,000 a year, and assuming it's a normal job, 40 hours a week, 2 weeks vacation, you then are making about $50 an hour. And that feels like good money, right? It feels like, I finally made it. 6 figures, $50 an hour, that's what I'm worth, that's my value. And so then we go and we start our own business, and $50 an hour, that's kind of like your baseline, or maybe not even. Maybe it's less than that, right? Maybe you were making $50,000, and so you're $25 an hour, and that's your baseline. And so you're looking at the work that you do for yourself, and you're saying, well, I have to price this out, so I'm just going to go from there. $25, I'm sure people will be willing to pay me $25 an hour. I'm sure people will be willing to pay me $50 an hour. And because that's what I was making doing something else, and so I need to make that, doing this. And so that's what they do. But the problem is that when you were an employee, $50 an hour was your value, but the owner was paying to keep the lights on. The owner was paying for all the insurance. The owner was paying for benefits. The owner was paying for a lot of these other things. So while he was paying you $50 an hour, it might have been $100 an hour to keep it all going, right? And so our perspective of value as an employee or an entrepreneurial employee needs to shift in order to, again, we're the CEO, run a profitable, scalable business that will support the life that we're trying to lead. And so as an example, I had a coaching client and they wanted to work with me so that we could get their mobile bar to a place where she could leave her job. Totally no problem. How many events are you currently doing? We're probably doing about 25 a year. Okay, that's low. We've got, we can definitely pick up some more than that. And how many do you want to do? Because it's just you and you've got all these rigs and I could probably handle, if I left my job and I just did this full time, I could probably do about 2 a weekend for the season. Okay, 60 events, 70 events most. And how much do you want to make? Like, how much do you want to take home? How much, what are you making now that you want to replace? I'm making $250,000 a year. Okay. That that's a lot. Now, it's not impossible. I do know mobile bar owners that do profit off their company, $250,000 a year. However, they have giant operations, because while $250,000 a year is what you're taking home as an employee, they're having to probably make $1.25 million a year in order for them to have profit enough to pay you that or more, right? And so, having said that, I want us to be super aware that what we want to take out of our businesses is the profit, and we still need to factor in operating expenses, cost of sales, and we'll talk all about those in the next lesson. And then there's, the cushions there. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to talk about the cushion. We're going to build it backwards. All right. And so there's a 4-step formula that I like to use when it comes to reframing value. And so the first thing is, what does it cost someone to do this themselves? Okay. And so, if you are going to host your own bar for your event, and just pick any event, 100 people for 4 hours. That's a great baseline one. 100 people for 4 hours, and you're going to have beer, wine, and mixers. Okay. How much is it going to cost you to do it yourself? You go to the Sam's Club or the Costco, the Kroger, wherever it is that you're going to get your stuff. And what are you going to need, and how much is it going to cost you? Okay. That is the baseline. That's the do-it-yourself pricing model. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add to that what it would cost you to hire someone else to go and run that errand for you. All right. Nothing crazy. But like, they're going to go and they're going to pick up the mixers, and then they're going to tend the bar. Okay. Because that's the labor, right? So what does it cost? What would it cost you to pay someone to go out and get all the mixers that you're going to get for the event, and then to tend the bar, do the setup, the cleanup, all right? That gets tacked on to the cost of just the product. Then we are going to add on what I like to call most lovingly, the expert fee. In the industry kind of calls it a service charge. I like to refer to it as the PITA tax, or the pain in the ass tax, right? Because the reason people aren't going out there and hiring somebody to go and pick up all their mixers and then tend the bar themselves, and they're hiring a business to do that for them, is because it's a pain in the ass. And so that's your fee for having to organize, to create systems around, to actually, hire, train, that's the service fee. That's the fee. That's the expert fee, or the PITA tax. And that can be whatever you'd like. We have a little exercise later on in this module, and we'll work through that. But so far we have the do-it-yourself. What does it cost to buy all the supplies? What does it cost to hire someone to do all of those things? And then what does it cost to have a company that is going to organize who is going to do it, and what needs to be purchased, then arrange for that to show up where it is that my event is happening, right? So so far those 3 pieces. And then the fourth, this is the magic. The fourth one is the markup, right? So far, all you've done is covered the cost of what it would cost to actually do it, staff it, organize it. But there's no money to be had so far, right? The markup is where the money is. And so the markup, and that can, again, you can choose whatever it is you want your markup to be. But the value of this exercise and your action items for this module are to establish a baseline of what you think currently is reasonable to pay for this 100-person event, 4 hours. And I say reasonable because when people are first starting to build their pricing, they might be like, you see it in the Facebook groups all the time. They're like, well, I charge $35 an hour for bartending, and then $150 for 4 hours, up to 100 people. And that includes ice, mixers, cups, straws, and the bartending equipment. Right? Okay, so for a 4-hour event, if it's $35, you're kind of talking like $125 and then $150. So $275 is what you have deemed reasonable to have one bartender at this event with, these things, right? And then I want you to do the math on that. Okay, so step 2 in the action items is actually to do the math using the 4-step system. And then the third action item is to look at the difference. How far off are you from what you deem reasonable to pay for these things and what you actually would need to pay for this if you were to build a business around this service that was sustainable and profitable? And sometimes when I do this exercise with people, it blows their mind in a great way, because what they realize is that they are providing so much more value than they even thought. They aren't just showing up and slinging drinks and then paying like slightly above retail for the sodas, because there's so much effort that goes into, not only going to pick up the mixers, but then to bring it back, to lug it to the event, to lug it back, to store the inventory, to do all of the dishes, right? There's a ton of effort. Beyond that, you need to organize that shopping list. You need to make sure somebody is, trained, and that you have the proper licensing, and that you have a business, and that you have insurance. There's so much that goes into that, right? And a lot of times when we get really excited and when we start a company, we want to get in, we want to be the deal, right? Like we want to be like, I'm going to be, giving away these first couple just so I can get my name out there, right? And if you make the conscious decision to donate an event or to discount yourself because you know that that'll get you marketing clout, it's totally different than establishing pricing that may cover your costs, your cost of sales, which again we'll talk about in the next section, but it doesn't cover your operating cost. And if it does cover your operating costs, it probably doesn't cover enough to actually pay you enough money to build a business. And it's my assumption that you're here and you're investing in your business because you don't want to be the one slinging drinks all the time, right? You want to build a business or an empire that has other people doing the work. And so if you have other people doing the work, you need to pay for that. But you also still need to get paid because you're organizing the empire. And that's a skill, and that's something you need to be paid for. So in this exercise, we're going to get your baseline of what you consider reasonable for your services, your products and services. And then we're going to do math. And we're going to create a new pricing, potentially. Maybe you'll be dead on. I don't know. Most people who have done this have not been dead on. And then we're going to look at the difference. And then we're going to kind of let that seep in. And we're going to hopefully reframe your concept of value. And so oftentimes when people do this, they think, oh, $500 seems reasonable. And then by the time they look at all the other things, suddenly it's like, oh, $1,000 seems reasonable. $1,000 is good with me, right? And the reason I do this exercise is because oftentimes we don't truly consider the 360-degree impact of pricing. We want to make sure that we're giving people a good deal. We don't want to be too expensive, and we want to feel like we can justify asking the costs. And without doing this exercise, sometimes people don't know how to justify the costs or justify the pricing. And so that's the point of this exercise. I can't wait to hear what you guys get. Please drop in the comments of this lesson what you got, what impact this had on you, whether you thought this was a helpful exercise, whether you were spot on with your pricing, or whether you are, as a result, going to increase your pricing, whatever it might be. Let me know.